various processes. More and more could be done in Colorado. Some of it still had to be sent to Boston. And finally, in the 1870s, Professor Hill got his process to where it could all be done in Colorado. And soon Colorado had a smelter in every white spot in the road. Professor Hill himself became very wealthy and was later one of our U.S. senators. Well, the word did get around, and in the 1870s, gold prospectors reached all the far corners of Colorado, and many towns became wealthy, and many had a quick boom and a bust. But one town was very special, and that was Leadville. And it had been an earlier settlement called Oro City, where they found gold. While they were looking for gold, the prospectors complained that you had to fight your way through the damned blue stuff. And the damned blue stuff clogged your sluice boxes and was always in the way. And then somebody who knew about the Comstock silver discovery in Nevada pointed out that might be silver. And in fact, it was lead carbonate, thus the name Leadville, very rich in silver. And in the late 1870s, Leadville led the rest of the state into a major silver boom. Also, our politicians helped get silver coinage, so there was a major use for silver. Now, any discussion of Leadville leads us again to the famous Horace Tabor. I don't have a picture of his first wife. I do have a picture of his second wife, the famous Baby Doe. And they lived in style. And Horace, who in truth was a fairly intelligent man who had been a leading citizen of Leadville, he liked to grub stake miners. He grub staked a couple of Germans, and they found the Little Pittsburgh mine, which made him very wealthy. And then the story goes that Horace was so lucky that a crook named Chicken Bill tried to cheat him. Chicken Bill salted. In other words, he took some silver ore from elsewhere, put it on the ground, sold the land to Tabor, and said, there's your mine. Well, Tabor dug a little deeper, and the result was the valuable chrysolite mine. And so it was the old Tabor luck. He was a multi-millionaire, and will remain so for quite a while, but he, as we'll see, had a very sad ending. Leadville became, probably in tonnage, I imagine Cripple Creek has Leadville beat, total tonnage to come out of the mines. But Leadville was kind of the quintessential American town where great fortunes started. In the case of Colorado fortunes, 3 men are considered the kings of Colorado mining. One was Tabor. The other one was, Winfield Scott Stratton, and he was there at the same time. Stratton was a carpenter, and the only way he knew Tabor was that Stratton built the silver dollar, which was the trademark on the top of Tabor's bank. Later, in a reversal of fortune, Tabor would go bust, Stratton would become rich, and Stratton would attempt to bail Tabor out, where he was unfortunately unsuccessful. The third of the great Colorado mining kings was Tom Walsh, who I wrote my book about. Tom was in Leadville at the same time, and he owned the Grand Hotel. So he was mainly a hotel keeper, but he prospected on the side, and he had some pretty good success with a place called St. Kevin's Gulch, just northeast of Leadville. And he would largely use the knowledge he gained there to later become very wealthy off the Camp Bird mine in Ouray. David Moffett already had a lot of money, and he extended it in Leadville, although some say in a slightly controversial manner. Moffett, Horace Tabor, and U.S. Senator Jerome Chafee ended up being the partners and the great promoters of the Little Pittsburgh mine, which had been a very rich mine, but just as they were promoting its stock as far away as the eastern U.S. and Europe, the vein did a thing that mineral veins are known to do called pinching out. In other words, it suddenly came to an end. The miners couldn't find any more silver, and they didn't immediately tell this to the investors. And millions more flowed into the Little Pittsburgh mine before this became public. When it became public, it was suddenly discovered that the 3 developers, Moffett, Chafee, and Tabor, had conveniently sold their shares about a month earlier. They were actually sued in the Supreme Court of New York by cheated New York investors, but they won the trial. They were found to have probably been sharp businessmen, but fell short of actually scam artists. The great Guggenheim fortune got quite a bit of its start in Leadville. Simon Guggenheim was later one of our senators. It's said that Simon used his money to just buy his Senate seat. His father, Meyer, had come from poor upbringing in Switzerland. He was prospering as a merchant in Philadelphia when he sent his sons to this new place called Leadville, and they made a fortune. Simon developed smelters for all the gold in Pueblo. And John Campion made millions in Leadville, later donated his mineral collection to the, what is now the Colorado Museum of Natural Science, the same collection that has the rhodochrosites. Now trains arrived in Colorado in 1870, and they soon could lead to nearly every mining district, narrow gauges like this one. But some places were just too steep for the train. You had to rely on the horses and wagons, more of those. How about Bear Creek Falls? If you've ever taken the $1 Million Highway south of Ouray, this was its predecessor road, and it shows just how tough it was to prospect and develop in the steep San Juan Mountains. This road was developed by a man named Otto Mears, who was known as the Pathfinder of the San Juans. Otto usually cleverly arranged that all of his wagon roads were no steeper than railroad grade, so he could build a railroad later on. But he couldn't do that here. And if you do travel that road today, you see how many ominous white crosses there are for people that didn't make it. I once rode over in a bus next to a woman from Massachusetts who had her eyes closed the whole way. Well, here's a miners group, and I think it says apply for work here. Miners didn't have much chance to sit around and do nothing. They were expected to work as long as 12-hour shifts. When they would strike, they would ask for $3 a day, and many mine owners were not willing to pay them even that much. They worked in dangerous and dirty conditions. Here are some early drills. Finally, toward the end of the 1800s, more modern drills that were hydraulic had been developed, but there still was quite a dust problem. When this picture was taken, at least they could afford to have a color photographer underground, but this is probably what's known as the Laner drill. The Laner drill had a water hose in addition to a hydraulic hose. The water both cooled the drill and kept the dust down, so that was somewhat beneficial to the miners in preventing silicosis and other dust-borne illnesses. Another miner group, they aren't smiling, but there was a lot of demand. One other thing, especially if you were developing a placer deposit, you could develop a sluice. Water was diverted, the ore was placed in the sluice, and it took advantage of the fact that gold, being the heaviest element in gravel, would sink to the bottom. The water would carry off the waste rock. There were riffles in the bottom of the sluice, and you later on cleaned the gold out of that. The next step from sluicing was hydraulic mining. They learned how to come up with hydraulic hoses with a very high pressure, and they would literally blast away the sides of hills, of whole hills, just to get to the gold. Who's miner's best friend underground? Well, it's not the Tommy Knocker, it's the burro. Burros did lots of work. Some burros never saw the light of day. These burros, it looks like, are hauling gold ore sacks down to the Rio Grande Southern Railroad. On this particular day, all traffic in the streets of Ouray had to stop while the burros brought in the mine timbers to go to Tom Walsh's Camp Bird mine. This is my favorite burro picture. These burros, 65 burros with 20,000 feet of wire rope, and it's looped around both sides of the burro and then passed on to the next burro. This is downtown Telluride, and these boroughs are headed to put